Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr, and you are listening to Fiber Talk, the twice weekly podcast for needlework artists. Our artist this week from the Monsters Lounge, Theresa Lawson. Theresa, welcome.
Hello, nice to meet you. Thanks for
Yeah, you
having me.
too. Thanks for doing this. All right. For all the listeners, get the story about the Monsters Lounge out of the way because that doesn't fit the usual needlework thing.
I know, yeah, that was kind of I should have thought about it a little bit more, but I think I was looking around the room and deciding what was interesting and settled on my cat, Monster. And he lounges a lot, so the Monsters Lounge, and there it was.
There we have it, right
I was
there.
looking for
Yep.
an interesting business name or something a little bit catchy, but
It's different. It's different. Yep.
it
Well,
certainly is, yeah. It
yeah.
gets people talking.
Yeah. I love the cat name, though, Monster. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was a monster. Very naughty.
Uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes they are. All right, as a former educator, I was really irritated and surprised that when I read the high school counselor that said you didn't have the brains to make a living with embroidery. I
Yeah.
I mean, as a former educator, it's been a long time since I taught school, but the message is always encourage. If somebody thinks they're interested in this, give them an opportunity to explore it, and to shut you
Mm.
down like that. But obviously, it didn't work. So
Yeah, it was the trouble is that the more people I tell about that, the more stories I hear about that, which is,
oh
really disheartening. Yeah, a lot of people careers have been off-railed by just one comment just like that. And you have to be really careful, especially if you're in that position and speaking to somebody in the formative years of their life about the
yeah,
things that you say to them. And like you say, it should be encouraging. It should be, okay, this is what you think would make you happy. Let's see how you can do that. And even if your grades are bad, like mine were, then okay, let's see how we can work around that. And what do you need to do to improve in order to get you to where you want to be rather than, sorry, I don't think you're smart enough for that. So let's look at something else. Yeah.
I just can't believe that because yeah, it's all right. Well, then here's what the job looks like. Here's a couple people in the community that you might talk to.
Exactly.
Here's yeah, all those things that give you a chance to see if it really is what you want. And
Mm,
yeah,
precisely.
and
Yeah.
and so many people start out thinking they're going to be one thing, and they end up being something completely different. But then, in
Hmm.
your case, it worked out. Did that
Well,
drive
yeah.
you? Did that drive you? Did that always sit in the back of your head, just kind of a chip on your shoulder kind of thing?
No, I wish I could say it did. What actually happened was I listened to her and I assumed that she was right because she was an adult figure, and so I I stopped doing art. I looked into administration, something that I thought that I could handle with the lack of smarts that I had, and so most of my career ended up being in either warehousing or administration. With art on the side, art was always a part of my life, always will be, but it was never a pursuit. It was more of like, this is what makes me happy. I'm going to do it on the side, kind of a thing. Which, yeah, a little bit.
Interesting.
It was a formative moment in my life and a really disappointing one. And if I have a message for anyone that I speak to about any young people that I speak to about making a career in art, yes, it can be difficult, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be pursuing it. Don't listen to people, well, listen to people, but take it as advice as opposed to, this is what you have to do to be successful in life.
Right. So, oh, that frustrates me to no end because
Yeah,
to
it's
say to
disappointing.
say you don't have the brain power to do it. We all learn in different ways, and
Yeah,
obviously
exactly.
you're a visual person, and so maybe that's why your grades weren't so great was because reading a book just didn't work for you, and
Yeah.
that it's so frustrating. Yeah, all those years, So you kept art alive. Was there a point where you just said, "This is what makes me happy. This is what I'm going to do"?
Let's see. Yeah, so how did that work out? I remember I was working in the kind of charity sector, working with a lot of women who were experiencing homelessness at the time. And I had read in Seattle that they had planned on ending homelessness, and I was like, "Oh, I'd like to be a part of that. That sounds interesting." They didn't, obviously, they didn't manage to do that,
I was going to say,
but
how'd that go? Yeah.
yeah. But it did. It brought me to America, where I met my husband, and so all the while I'm still making art, but I'm trying to find work in in not the voluntary section, but in in women experiencing some kind of homelessness crisis. And so I've done that. I found a position, and everything's going, tickety boo. And then I read that Seattle has a really good art community, a really good art sphere, and so we were doing the circuit of all the different urban crafts fairs and all the interesting art and craft shows. And so we went to one in particular that had an artist called Rachel Austin, and she does a lot of mixed media painting. And I went to her booth, and I was just like, oh, this is, because it wasn't like that kind of art that you traditionally see, which is just so intricate and beautiful, and it looks really realistic. It was more like kind of a naive style of art where she used a lot of maps, and she used a lot of different concepts in her art. And then I was like, this is really different. This looks achievable. This is something that I can do. And so I went home and was just inspired by that and started creating more and more. And then I slowly just started gravitating back to working with fibers because I'd always done that as a child. My grandmother was a knitter. My mother was always quilting. And so it just
Yeah.
became natural for me.
Sure.
And then it just kind of, organically grew from there, and it became less of a hobby and more of a drive, a passion, and then it became a business.
Yeah. So that transition intrigues me because, yeah, you can have it as something you do on the side in the evening and on weekends, but then to have that kind of inspiration and then start to say, wait a minute, I can do something with this, and then it
Mm.
starts to consume more time as you evolve. And do you reach a decision at some point where you say, wait a minute, I think I can do a business? And there's the story of stitching the house for your sister that
Yeah.
plays into that too.
No, it wasn't really okay, I'm just gonna start a business now. It was more like that organic movement. So my sister had moved across country, and I was, what can I make for her that would mark this occasion? Because it was a huge move. She essentially just gave up her life to start elsewhere. And so she'd lived in her home that she was moving from for almost 20 years. And so
Oh,
I thought, well, let's memorialize, if you like, the house. And I created that. I had already started building a social media on Instagram, and I placed a picture of the portrait that I made for her on Instagram, and one of my the people that I had grown friends with saw it, and she was like, "Oh, can you make something like this for me?" And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll just maybe pay for some of the supplies, and then I'll get that out to you." So I made that, and then after that, other people saw that, and I'm like, "Oh, well, can you also do that, something like that for me?" And so it kind of, I was like, "Oh, okay, I can maybe make a little bit of pocket money from this," and so it just kind of grew from there.
okay.
That along, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Well, and that's got to be so hard for something like that, where you just made one for your sister, and then now somebody wants to pay you for it. How do you figure out how much to charge? Oh, that's a tough call. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who start art as a business go through that, don't they? It's because you don't want to be a kind of a corporate greedy type of person, but you still have to pay for the skill that you're providing for somebody.
Right.
And it's a hard thing to get into your head that I deserve to be paid for what I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started out like most artists do, not charging what I was worth, just saying, "Oh, okay, well, I'll do you a favor and just pay for supplies." And then it was just not sustainable. So I started increasing the rates slightly and not
Yeah,
paying for my time as well as the
right.
supplies and everything that it
Yeah.
took.
Yeah, I had a flight attendant. I was stitching on a plane, flying back from Europe, and stitching, and she wanted to see what I was doing, and then, do you sell those things? And I said, people can't afford them, because
Yeah.
if you do it on an hourly basis, nobody can afford. Well, maybe 2% of the people can afford them, but yeah, it's such a tough call because the hours that go in, charge 20,
Mm.
25 bucks an hour, and it's expensive piece. Yeah,
Yeah, that's why it's kind of important to kind of diversify what you're providing. So in my case, I provide a lot of patterns for people who want to do it themselves. Those are really affordable. I've obviously got the books which show you how to do the bigger pieces yourself, and I still take commissions, but as you say, those are the ones that take all of the hours, and
right.
so they charge more.
Yeah, the houses that you do, so dimensional and textured, and there's so much to them, where it would be really easy to just do satin stitch walls and make some windows and do it in the right color and call it good. But you go way beyond that. A lot of work I mean, it says to me a lot of work, a lot of trial and error to get the dimension and texture that you get out of those houses.
Yes, part of that was because when I was learning embroidery, I wanted to make use of as many stitches as I could. And so I started to see how, when I was working with them, some stitches would look a lot like certain aspects of buildings or homes or trees. So, like, for example, if you have stem stitch, it's kind of wiggly. And then if you use a certain type of fiber, it kind of looks a little rough. And so, if you add a bunch of stem stitches all together in a patch, it kind of looks like a tree bark. So it was it was more of a case of what stitch will look like this part of the house, and that's kind of how the dimension developed in my pieces,
Yeah.
along with a lot of padding.
Yes. Well, but you use it so effectively though. That's the thing is you really the padding just puts life into those things where so many times if somebody stitches a house, it's just this flat dead thing that, yeah, okay, that's a house, bravo for you. But yeah, you use the padding and you really get some texture and some lift to it. It's really nice. Yeah. What's that like, doing commission work? Is that, I mean, if a house, you go take a few pictures of the house and then you replicate it. But doing commission work just seems to me like a difficult thing because you see one thing and your client may see something else.
I think my clients come to me because they like my style, and
Okay.
so they have an idea of what they're going to get at the end of the day. Um, I wouldn't find it really difficult. I quite enjoy it because you get to develop a relationship with the person that you're working for, and you get to hear about the stories of the home and why it's so important to them, and it's a joyful experience to work with someone like that. I don't know what it might be like to work for, I don't know, a company or whatever, because then that personal aspect's taken away. But most of my clients have been just normal people who want to take a place that is special to them and show it off to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and doing it with needle and thread is such a unique way as opposed to,
Yeah,
yeah, it, it brings out a different look as opposed to paint or colored pencil or something like that. Yeah.
it does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. The do you still do houses for people,
I
or
took
is that,
a long break for a while
yeah,
because it
okay.
was getting too much. In fact, that's part of the reason why I wrote Hand Stitch House, because I was getting a lot of orders for commissions and there's only 24 hours in the day. And so I thought, well, perhaps if I write the book, then that will help people who obviously appreciate art to maybe do it themselves. And because home is such a personal thing to you, I thought that, well, if I just give them the tools, then that will make it more meaningful for them to create something like this for themselves. it had the opposite effect. I had more people saying, "Well, that's cool
Oops.
and all, and I'll probably do that eventually. Your book is really nice, but I'd really rather you do it." So eventually, I got to the point where I just was like, I can't. I need some time to just, do nothing for a while. And so I took a break for about a year. I'm just now started taking commissions again. So I've got two more projects on the way. One that's a little bit different. It's not a house, it's more of a map. But yeah, back at it.
Yeah, yeah. But I know what you mean about when you have a job and you have to deliver a product and the pressure of doing that. And I'm sure there's not a hard and fast deadline, but there is kind of an unspoken deadline that people do want it done in their lifetime. That pressure, that pressure for me, it kind of takes the fun out of it to a degree, and it makes it a job, a factory type thing. And yeah, I don't enjoy that kind of work. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be the same thing day after day. And an embroidered house, it kind of comes all at once at the end of the project. And so you're just in the middle of the weeds, just working stitch after stitch after stitch for a while. And so, yeah, they take at least 6 weeks to do, most of them. And so it can be a bit of a grind if you're really not feeling it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah, that's just it. If you're not inspired, if you're just, it's like, oh, all right, I better work on that house tonight. I haven't done it in 2 days. I better,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Yep, I know. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love my poor hands.
yep. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So the house you do from time to time, but your other work is absolutely fascinating. You've evolved that. Are you actively designing this your other designs? Are you kits? How are you doing your business? I guess is the real question.
It's funny you should say kits. I was just talking to my mother the other day, and she said, "Why don't you do kits? Kits would be really good for people." So that is something that I'm thinking about. You have to toss up whether the initial cost of putting kits together is going to
Right.
be worth it at the end of the day. How many sales are you going to make, and is that going to be worth it? But yes, I'm exploring other designs. Like I said, I have another commission, which is not a house, which is really it's been an exploration of uh, how to handle that. I'm still working on other patterns. I'm renewing some of the patterns that I've made before, so that previously they were just pieces of art that people could buy. Now I'm making them into patterns so that people can create them themselves. And I'm just still out there looking at inspiration, seeing what tweaks my interest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. People see your work and they're going to want to stitch it, so you might as well put
Hope so.
patterns together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones that really caught my eye were these kind of triptych things where you use three hoops for what was it, the dandelion and the tugboat.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
it's so creative to like the tugboat to show the anchor using three hoops, and it's just really it's creative. I've never seen that done before.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I was exploring dimensions of things. I think one of the dandelion was um, just thought up when I went for a walk with my husband, and I was like, "Oh, dandelions live on three different planes." I was getting all woo in my, younger years. uh, three different planes, and they have like flying things, and they live on the earth, and then underneath you've got these giant roots. Isn't that interesting? And then I was like, oh, well, why don't we create something with that concept? And then tugboat comes along, a
Yeah.
paint can.
Yeah. No, it's just an interesting thing, and when you look at it, and none of them are really big, time-consuming pieces of art, but then put together, they tell a story. It's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a nice thing. Yeah. Is that I mean, you talk about kits. I got to believe that's a easy kit to put together in terms of
Yeah, they don't take a whole lot of investment for people. So, 3-inch hoops. What does that cost? What, they're like $2 each, and then
Yeah.
thread is fairly affordable still. And all you got to worry about is the linen, and then you got the pattern already. So,
Right. Yeah. Oh, they're very creative. Yeah. It's
is that
very
what you'd
nice.
like to see then? Okay, you heard it here first.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll look for that then. There was a comment you made somewhere in one, I think it was in one of the articles that someone wrote about you, comparing the old saw of women's work and needle art, and art. And we've talked with several different designers about that whole thing. That is kind of irritating. Where needle and thread, all right, that's woman's work. There's no way it's art, and it is. It's it's
Mm.
absolutely art, and it
Yeah,
frustrates me when
if
people.
yeah, if you think about the skill that goes behind embroidery and needlework in general, and the imagination that it takes to create something from scratch, it of course it's art. That's the definition of art, isn't it? Some inspiration and creating something from nothing and inspiring the imagination in people. So I don't know whether it's just the association that because the majority of women do it, then so therefore, it's not, it can't have credence. But yeah, it is frustrating, like you say.
Yeah, oh, very much so. Especially when you look at it in the history, the needlework used to be done by men almost exclusively, and then evolved over to women, probably because they had to hire women to get the job done, and and
Yeah.
yeah, and as a very very small minority in this world, to me it's art. I don't care how you look at it. It takes effort and skill and practice,
Mm.
and as with your houses, trial and error, and figuring things out to make them look right. And yeah, that's art. That's not just sewing buttons on shirts. Sorry.
Yeah. Not that
uh,
there's anything wrong with that, and that in itself can be art in a way, isn't it? I've seen a lot of kind of artistic um, takes on shirts and clothing, just the way that some sewers are designing things these days. That in itself can be considered art.
right. Oh yeah, yeah.
The
It just
fashion design, you see them walking on the catwalk in these
right,
crazy looking outfits, and that's art.
right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean that's that whole world is nothing but clothing art. I mean, it's all it is. And
Mm.
yeah, it frustrates me. So two books. You have the one on houses, and then you have what is it, hand stitched Oasis. Talk about so the house one was so people could do it themselves, and that backfired on you. Um,
Yeah.
talk about that book. What is in that book?
So the hand stitch house,
Yeah,
that is um, it's basically a beginning to end guide of how to create the style of houses that I make. So it will start out talking about the supplies you need, some of the experience that might be helpful. It will talk about the design process, and then we get into the weeds of here are the stitches that you use. This is how you put the design together, and it's sectioned into three sections. First part, getting ready, designing. Second part is actually doing the stitching, and then the third part is finishing it off. So you have a beautiful piece that you're ready to go. It ended up being 200 pages because I didn't want to take anything out.
right,
So
right.
it's a very thorough guide of how to create a hand stitch house.
Yeah. Okay, so you do that. People just want you to do the houses anyway. Then then the hand stitch Oasis. That's a different approach or different type of art. Then
Yeah, it kind of came about from Hand Stitch House because it was the Hand Stitch House book was already at 200 pages, and so I didn't have a chance to add things that I wanted to add around the house, like the natural aspects, more into trees, more into bushes, more into different types of scenes. And so I was approached by C&T Publishing, asking whether they could publish Hand Stitched House, and then I don't remember what happened there, but it eventually turned into, well, why don't we just create something entirely new? I've been wanting to work on more outdoor elements. Why don't we create an outdoor thing, and then it can kind of work hand in hand with Hand Stitched House?
Mm-hmm.
And so Hand Stitched Oasis was developed, and it's a guide to creating all kinds of natural scenes. It's similarly set up, but because it was working with a publisher, it's a little thinner.
That'll happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You
It
enjoy
costs
that?
money to print these books. The process,
Yeah.
um, it was a little different. It was a lot easier because I had a whole team of people behind me, so I didn't have to do all of the. I had to do all the artwork, but I didn't have to do all of the editing. I didn't have to take all the pictures. I didn't have to put it all together. I didn't have to find a printer. So it was a lot easier in that way, but you do lose a lot of control over what goes into the book. So things that might be important to you as the artist, um, your editor may say, "Oh, well, is it really necessary to go over this again?" Because the type of people who are buying it will probably already know that, and so it can be a little bit um, disheartening, I guess. The fact that it has to be edited down so it's reasonable, it's a reasonable price for people to pay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it was a fun process. I really did enjoy it, and it turned out to be a beautiful book. So I'm proud of it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. No, as a 45-year magazine editor, yeah, I know that end of the function. Yeah. And and
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, a good editor will improve your product. Yes. And yeah, I know I've edited some articles where I'm sure the author wasn't real happy with the end result in terms of not having all of the extensive wording in there, but had to admit that in a paragraph we got what he said in 2 pages. We got the
Yeah.
message across. So it's a kind of give and take there. Yeah. So the first book then, this houses, you did that all yourself?
Yeah, completely
Oh,
self-published. Yeah, it was quite an
whoa.
undertaking. I remember I
Yeah.
finished it and I was like, never again. I'll never do this again.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you sit down and you think, "Oh, I'll write this thing and I'll have a book," and then you realize all the other parts that go into it. It's like, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Initially, I had planned it to be just a little ebook that would, be 5 pages long, and then it just kept growing and growing.
oh,
Well, I should really add this, and they probably want to know that. And so,
yeah,
yeah.
oh boy. So where do people get these books? Through your website, or can we get them in all the usual places, or what?
Yes, you can go on my website. You can find Hand Stitch House in, I think they're wholesaling in, oh gosh, I forget the place, Quarto, I think. I'm not sure. I'll add it, and then you can add it to the links if you feel like it. Um, Stitch People, www.stitchpeople.com. You can find Hand Stitch House, and you can find Hand Stitch Oasis either on my website or on C&T Publishing.
Okay, CNC, like C ampersand C
Yep, that's right.
Publishing.
C&T.
Okay,
C&T. C&T for Terrence.
got another idea for a book in the works, or
No.
no?
Not right now. No, take a little break from that.
Yeah, yeah. They're an undertaking, but to have two of them, that's a good accomplishment, no doubt about it.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So what is your process when it comes to creating your art? Is it you work from photos, from drawings, a combination? How do you go about creating the pieces that you have?
Depends on the piece. The houses all come from photos. To get them as representative of the house as possible, then you have to kind of use the photo as the model. So I'll ask people, can you send me something as front facing as possible so that I'd be able to trace it onto the piece and then work from there. the other pieces just kind of come from my imagination or how I want it to appear. Like I have some pumpkins that I made, and those the 3D they sit off of the fabric, and those I really just wanted to capture, the fun little aspects of pumpkins, and so they just developed from that. Yeah, it really depends on the piece or what I'm inspired by.
Yeah. So one of those artists that has ideas floating around in your head all the time.
Oh yeah, you should see my Pinterest page. It's insane.
Oh, that's where you collect your ideas, is Pinterest?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got about 5,000 boards and 16
Oh
million
no.
pins. So.
Oh my. Yeah. Is it how do you sort through all that in terms of what are you going to do next? Just how it feels that at the moment?
Usually, just what I'm excited about is what I'll pursue because that will give me the gumption to keep going rather than, oh, I've got to do this because this is the only thing that will sell. It's something, if I feel like if I'm passionate about it, other people will be passionate about it too. And so, I progress with that.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the question from an artist perspective. Do I do what inspires me or what I think will sell? And
Yeah.
that's kind of an interesting call. I mean, artists of all kinds have to deal with that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's too bad because it gives you kind of an icky feeling that you have to consider the fact that, oh, well, I need to make an income, so what are people going to buy? But at the same time, it's like, is that really what being an artist is?
Right.
Just
Right.
now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's of course in the music industry. That's the classic question: is that some band will get started and they're doing music the way they want to, and they'll trip over one that becomes a popular piece of music, but it's not really what they do, and
Yeah.
then the pressure to do more of that. Well, that's not what we do, but it made us money, so now what do we do? Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
So
and that's all people want to hear from then on, and so yeah,
yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I think
Play
that's
that
how
one
burnout
song.
happens, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's a tough call. Yeah, and I think in the end, every artist just decides to stay true to themselves and just let it be what it can.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I feel like if you're passionate about something, it comes through in your work, and other people will be as well. They'll be inspired by it to make their own, and so.
Yeah. So where is the Monsters Lounge then? Is a full time? Are you a full time job for all intents and purposes?
No,
Is
I wish. No, it's
okay?
more of a part-time thing. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm working at a large online realtor right now, part-time, and then the art is the other half of my work.
Okay. So you are able to devote chunks of the day then to your art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
large chunks, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
All the
That's
daily.
good. Yeah. And then, obviously, thanks to your mom, we're going to have kits coming up next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. But where is that headed? Are you looking to create designs and sell more of those to teach classes online? What is in your future?
Um, The kits is definitely something that I'm looking into. I need to figure out how to pay for that, essentially.
Yeah.
Teaching, I'm not really sure. I do it off and on, but it's not something it's usually just something that's requested, and then I'll do it to help people out as opposed to something that I'm
Okay.
a regular provider for. I wouldn't mind teaching a bit more. It's fun, especially when you get a group of really fun people to, work together and teach them, watch them get excited about the projects that they're creating. But it's not something that I have planned at the moment, but perhaps in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you enjoy it, yeah, it can be rewarding. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Teresa, thank you so much. And well, we got 2 books, so we got plenty of projects we can get out of those, and kits coming up. And your mom will be there to help ship them, package
Oh
and ship.
yeah, yeah. She
Yeah.
better be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Mom, you buy the inventory for these kits.
There you
See?
go.
See?
Figured out.
Yeah,
Nice.
invest. If you want kits, Mom, invest. Yes.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
retired now. She's got plenty of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And store them, and she can store all the
Yeah.
right.
Oh, she'd love that. A garage
Yes.
packed with
Yeah. See, that's the other
embroidery
part.
supplies.
You gotta have some place to put the boxes. So
Yeah.
make her think twice next time she asks. All right, Teresa, themonsterslounge.com is the website, and thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
No problem. It was really good speaking to you.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for listening.